I was making really good progress across the country, generally doing more than 300 miles in the driving days, which is what I sort of budgeted. So I decided not to do such a long day, and thought I would try and find something to see that was interesting along the way. So it was time to leave the campsite, get some gas, and then hit the road. The terrain was not as flat as it had been, so there was some gently rolling hills to drive over. After driving for a couple of hours or so, I decided that I would stop at the next site, whatever that was, and it turned out to be the Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument. So let's go take a look at that. The Battle of Little Bighorn was one of the many encounters in the centuries-long conflict that began with the arrival of the European settlers into North America. Here it was a result of settlers breaking treaties again, finding gold in the hills. This is the memorial to the US soldiers that were killed in the battle. And across the way from there is a memorial that the native Indians have put up. That was a peaceful, moving tribute. The whole area was rather peaceful, which kind of belies what bloody battles took place here. After that, it was time to hit the road again to get to my afternoon evening destination, stopping off at rest areas, having to be rather careful at this one. I didn't see any rattlesnakes. Then carried on into some more hills, and finally arriving at the Grey Cliff Mill, which was a really beautiful sight on the side of the highway. There isn't a natural water course here. They use a big water tank that you could just see there to drive the water wheel. But they do grind their own flour. I did pick up some gifts from there. A whistle. There's the van parked with a horse behind it. They take horse trail rides in the hills behind there. Yeah, you can see it's pretty next to the highway. Noise didn't bother me. And there were the neighborhood goats, and you'll see in a moment that they came right up to the van, along with some sheep. There were other RVers there. I had some great conversations with them during the afternoon and evening. And there were the goats. They went actually underneath the van. I was kind of worried for a moment, but they all came out the other side. And I would have liked to have walked in the hills back there, but it didn't get an opportunity. So they go horseback riding there. And they're still building out this property. After an evening stroll, time for some more chats with the neighbors, and then eventually turn in for the night. Day 11, June 12th, was another day which I didn't need to do a whole lot of driving in. I'd booked in at another Harvest Host location at the end of the day, an alpaca farm, so I was going to arrive there early enough to get a bit of a tour of the farm, talk with the owner if I could, and also to go on a bike ride. So it was going to be a pretty leisurely day, and it turned out to be a gorgeous day. I had plenty of time in the morning before I left to take another look at the mill, and as you can see, the wheel is turning. The water is fed from this water tower. As I mentioned before, there's no running water here. The mill was relocated here. You can see the corn being ground by stone. They use it to bake their own pastries, which I had one for breakfast. It was really nice. And this tells you a little bit about the history of the mill. Eventually it was time to pack the van up and leave, going past the mill for one last time. Had a really nice breakfast there, scones, and I think I drank tea there. Might have been hot chocolate, can't remember. Getting back onto the highway, here we go for some more I-90 driving. You can see it's getting quite hilly at times. And hillier. But then there were some relatively flat sections as well. A windy rest area where I wasn't the only one stretching my legs. Back on the road again, the area getting hilly. Eventually it was time to leave the highway, go through a small town, take a turning off to smaller roads, with the farm in the distance near the hills on the left, and the roads got smaller and turned into gravel roads for a couple of miles or so. But the van did a fine job. And eventually arrived at the alpaca farm with a nice Harvest Hosts welcoming sign. And how's that for a nice parking spot? Here's the view from the parking spot I had, looking across the mountains in the distance to the alpaca farm itself. And Russell was kind enough to give me a tour where he explained that they breed alpacas here. That's how they make their money, along with some guest houses and selling some products. Some of them look more like dogs than alpacas.
Yeah, a couple dogs, a couple puppies. Got 2 older dogs and then 2 young puppies that are in training. So the socks are fiber from our ranch, co-opted with others, and they're sent to a sock manufacturer with our own designs. And so that's why we're able to put our own labels on these.
These alpaca yarns were all hand spun by Russell, and I bought some as a gift for Lynn, who I was staying with in Idaho later on in the trip. After the alpaca farm tour, I went for a short bike ride in the beautiful countryside. After eating dinner, there was the most spectacular double rainbow I have ever seen in my life. I thought this was absolutely gorgeous. Then I settled in for the night. The following morning, just before I was leaving, Russell explained a little bit about some of the construction work that was going on at the farm. And what are you building over here?
So these are going to be guest cabins. These are the platforms for them that they'll be doing in. We'll have 2 guest cabins for people to be able to stay here.
Great. Well, thanks again. It was a wonderful stay.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
This was such a nice place to stay at. Russell was a wonderful host. It was great learning about the alpacas and what he does with them. And the scenery was just fantastic.